Emma Carson sat in the back of the classroom and said nothing. She watched the other students move through the corridors of the Galactic Institute with their natural confidence. They belonged here. Tall Veltrans with their silver skin caught the light as they walked. Keshans moved in groups, their feathers rustling with excitement. Noctarians glided silently, their dark frames blending into shadows. Emma was not like them. She was human. She was from Earth. The Academy occupied the upper rings of Station Harmony, a massive structure that floated above the planet Vera Prime. The view from the observation deck showed a world of peace and perfect weather. No storms, no dangerous animals, no extreme temperatures that would kill a human in minutes. Emma had stared at that view on her first day, remembering her home. Earth's sky was different, darker, angrier. Today was her 4th week at the Academy. Emma carried her materials to the Advanced Combat Theory class. The corridor buzzed with students talking and laughing. Nobody talked to her. This was not because they were mean. It was simply because she did not matter. A girl from a soft world, weak by galactic standards, sent here as some kind of cultural exchange program. The Academy had accepted her, but acceptance was not the same as respect. Professor Harrison stood at the front of the classroom when Emma entered. He was Virian, tall and thin with pale blue skin. He had been kind to Emma during her first week. Now, like everyone else, he mostly ignored her unless she raised her hand in class. She did not raise her hand often. Emma sat in her usual seat in the back left corner. From there, she could see everything. She could see how the other students moved. She could see who laughed at jokes and who did not. She could see the clear order of the social hierarchy in this classroom. Zordians ranked high because they were strong and aggressive. Keshans ranked high because they were intelligent and organized. Noctarians ranked high because they were ancient and wise. Humans ranked at the bottom. Just Emma, one girl from a dead world full of fragile creatures. Kyle Martinez walked in with 3 other Zordian students. They moved like they owned the space. Kyle's dark blue skin caught the light. His body was built for strength, muscles developed through years of higher gravity training. He was 17, 1 year older than Emma, and he knew he was impressive. Everyone knew it. Kyle saw Emma and his expression did not change. Indifference was what she usually got from him. Sometimes she got contempt. Today, she would get something else. The class started. Professor Harrison activated the display wall, and it filled with information about Deathworlds. These were planets that produced conditions so extreme that only the toughest species could survive. Most of the students leaned back in their chairs, relaxed. This was theory. This was academic. None of them would ever face a real Deathworld. Space travel had made that unnecessary. Professor Harrison pointed to Earth's data. He listed the facts. Gravity at 1.0 times Station Harmony standard. Atmosphere with unstable weather patterns. Predators that could kill and eat a Veltran in a matter of minutes. Temperature ranges from freezing to burning hot. Ocean storms that could destroy buildings. Earthquakes. Volcanic activity. Diseases. Parasites. No mercy. No safety nets. Humans survived it anyway. That is why Deathworld species make excellent military units, Professor Harrison explained. They come from places where weakness means death. They are not soft. Kyle raised his hand. Professor Harrison nodded to him. Sir, with respect, I do not understand why we study this, Kyle said. His voice was strong and clear. Deathworlders are extinct or have left their planets behind. There are no more Deathworld humans. They have been living in soft stations for generations. They are no different from any of us now. Softer, even. Why do we pretend they still have value? Professor Harrison started to answer, but Kyle stood up. Besides, Kyle continued, we have one right here. An actual human from a Deathworld family. And she's the weakest student in this academy. She sits alone. She speaks to nobody. She cannot even lift the basic training weights that we use. How can we take the theory seriously when the reality is so pathetic? The classroom went quiet. Students shifted in their seats. Emma kept her eyes on the display screen. Kyle walked toward the back of the classroom. His footsteps were loud. He stopped next to Emma's desk and looked down at her. She could feel his shadow across her face. "You are from Earth, correct?" Kyle asked. Emma nodded. "Do not worry," Kyle said. His smile was not friendly. "I am sure your ancestors were very impressive. But you are not them." Emma turned to look at him. Their eyes met for a moment. Then she looked away. Kyle did not like being dismissed. He pulled a knife from the utility belt at his side. The blade was sharp and well-maintained. It was a training knife, not a real weapon, but it was still dangerous. He placed the blade on Emma's desk, flat side down, so the point faced her. "This," Kyle said, "is something your ancestors might have carried. They probably stabbed things with objects like this. But that world is dead. Those people are dead. You are just a normal student now. Soft, weak, forgettable." He pushed the knife slightly closer to her. "You understand?" Emma looked at the knife. She looked at Kyle. She looked back at the knife. Then a small smile appeared on her face. It was not a nervous smile. It was not a sad smile. It was the smile of someone who had just realized something important. The classroom felt colder. Professor Harrison stood up from his desk. "Kyle, return to your seat immediately," he ordered. But Kyle was watching Emma. He had seen her smile, and it confused him. Fear was what he expected. Anger might have been acceptable. But Emma simply sat there, smiling at a training knife as if it meant nothing. As if he meant nothing. "This lesson," Emma said quietly, "is about to get very interesting." Kyle's confidence flickered. Just for a moment. Just for a second. But Emma saw it, and everyone in the classroom saw her see it. Professor Harrison moved forward to end this before it went further. But Emma was already standing, slowly, calmly, as if she had all the time in the world. Kyle reached out to grab her arm, and Emma Carson showed everyone in that classroom why humans had survived Earth's Deathworld conditions. She showed them why her species had endured when every moment of existence had tried to kill them. She showed them, in that single moment, why Kyle Martinez had just made the worst mistake of his life. Kyle's hand was fast. Zorthians trained from childhood to move with speed and power. He reached for Emma's wrist, confident in his strength and his training. He had lifted heavier objects than a human girl. He had moved faster than most species in the academy. He was a Zorthian at peak physical condition. None of it mattered. Emma rotated her body with a movement that looked simple, but was absolutely perfect. Kyle's grab missed her wrist and closed on empty air. She stepped forward, not backward, moving into the space he was trying to control. Her hand caught his knife arm at the elbow, and her body weight shifted. Kyle felt the world move. He felt his balance leave him. His feet lifted off the ground. The classroom gasped. Kyle hit the desk behind Emma hard enough to knock the wind from his lungs. His knife fell from his hand and clattered across the floor. He was on his back, unable to breathe, unable to understand what had happened. It had taken maybe 2 seconds. Emma stood over him, calm and breathing normally. She had not exerted herself at all. "Do you understand now?" she asked. The other students stared. Professor Harrison moved forward, but did not know what to do. This had happened so fast. Kyle was a Zorthian athlete. Emma Carson was just a quiet girl from Earth. Kyle pushed himself up on his elbows, his pride burning hotter than his pain. He was not finished. He got to his feet and charged directly at Emma. No technique, just raw power and speed. He would barrel through her. He would prove that she was still weaker, Still inferior. Emma waited. As Kyle reached her, Emma dropped her center of gravity. She turned her hips and caught his charging momentum. Instead of meeting force with force, she channeled his power downward and forward. Kyle flew through the air and crashed into the back of the classroom. He hit the wall hard enough to crack the reinforced plastic. The silence was absolute. Kyle lay on the floor, the wind knocked out of him again. He gasped for air, his pride shattered. He tried to stand, but Emma was suddenly there, next to him. She did not hit him. She simply helped him sit up, her hand steady on his back. "Listen," Emma said, and her voice was not angry. It was just factual. "My world kills things every single day. The gravity alone would break your bones in weeks. The predators would hunt you. The weather would destroy you. The diseases would burn through your body. Your species has been living in soft stations for centuries. You have forgotten what it means to live in a place where the universe is trying to kill you." Emma knelt down to Kyle's level. The other students watched. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. "I was 6 years old when I first climbed a tree," Emma continued. "The tree had predators in it that would eat anything moving. I learned to move fast and quiet, or I died. I was 8 when I had to help my family hunt. I was 10 when I survived a fever that kills most aliens in hours. My bones are denser than yours. My muscles are built for gravity 3 times stronger. My reflexes have been trained by a world where hesitation means death." Kyle looked at her, and for the first time, he saw her. Not as a weak human girl, as something else entirely. "I do not want to hurt you," Emma said. "I am not angry. I am just explaining why you cannot win. I never wanted to fight anyone here. I wanted to be left alone. I wanted to study and learn and go home. But you pulled a knife on me. You threatened me. So now you know the truth." Emma stood and walked back to her desk. She picked up the training knife that Kyle had dropped. She examined it, then placed it carefully on his desk as he struggled to sit up fully. Professor Harrison finally found his voice. "Kyle, go to the medical center," he said quietly. "Let them check you for serious injuries." Kyle could only nod. He gathered himself and limped from the classroom. Nobody helped him. Nobody spoke. The other students watched Emma return to her seat like nothing had happened. Professor Harrison sat back down at his desk. He did not know what to teach anymore. The entire lesson had changed. The theory was no longer theory. It was experience. Every student in this classroom had just seen what a Deathworld-raised human could do. They had seen what they had underestimated. "As I was saying," Professor Harrison began, his voice uncertain, "Deathworld species do produce excellent military units. Perhaps more excellent than we realized." Emma opened her study materials and continued taking notes. She did not look up. She did not acknowledge what she had done. She simply sat quietly in the back of the classroom, the most dangerous person in the room. And nobody else even knew. But they would know soon. The news of what happened would spread through the academy within hours. The girl from Earth was not soft. The girl from Earth was not weak. The girl from Earth had taken down a Zordian athlete without using any real force. And she had done it while smiling. By the end of the day, everyone would know Emma Carson's name. By the end of the week, nobody would ever underestimate a human again. But in that moment, in that classroom, Emma simply sat and studied. She had done what was necessary. She had taught the lesson that Kyle had forced her to teach. Now she would return to being quiet and overlooked. Except that would never happen again. She had revealed herself. And the entire galaxy had seen it. The rest of the academy would have to decide what to do with this new knowledge. But Emma knew what she was. She always had. She was simply a girl from a Deathworld. And Deathworlders survived. That was all that mattered. The administration office of the Galactic Institute occupied an entire wing on the upper level of the station. Director Vasquez stood at the observation window, looking out at the planet below. He was a Noctarian, ancient by most standards, and he had seen many things in his long life. But he had not seen anything like the report he had just received. Emma Carson sat in the waiting room outside his office. She looked the same as she always did, calm, still, untroubled. Kyle Martinez was in the medical center with minor injuries. Bruised ribs, a strained shoulder, no broken bones, no lasting damage. He had, however, requested an escort for the rest of the day because he was too embarrassed to walk through the corridors alone. Director Vasquez read the report again. 37 witnesses. All of them confirmed the same story. Kyle had pulled a knife during class. Kyle had threatened Emma. Kyle had attacked her twice. Emma had responded with control and skill. She had not seriously injured him. She had not escalated beyond what was necessary for defense. The evidence was clear. Emma had acted in self-defense, but the implications were deeper than that. Director Vasquez opened his door and gestured for Emma to come in. She stood and walked with perfect posture, showing no anxiety or fear. "Sit," he said simply. Emma sat. "I have reviewed the reports from your classroom," Director Vasquez began. "I have spoken with Professor Harrison. I have reviewed the medical assessment. You are cleared of any charges. You acted in self-defense. You did not cause permanent injury. You used appropriate force under threat." Emma nodded. "However," Director Vasquez continued, "I have a question for you. Your file shows you have been at this academy for 4 weeks. Your grades are excellent. Your attendance is perfect. But you have filed no complaints about Kyle Martinez. You have not reported any previous incidents. Why did you not come to us?" Emma was quiet for a moment. "Because it was not serious before today," she said simply. "He ignored me. He made comments in class. He invaded my space. These are small things. They happen everywhere. I did not need protection from small things. And today?" Director Vasquez asked. "Today he pulled a weapon and put it on my desk," Emma said. "That is different. That is a threat. That I had to answer." Director Vasquez leaned back in his chair. He studied her face. Humans were expressive creatures, but Emma was not showing the emotion that most students showed in his office. Most students were nervous or angry or upset. Emma was just honest. "You have been ostracized since arriving here," he said. "The other students have excluded you. The faculty, with the exception of Professor Harrison, have ignored you. You have been treated as a curiosity, not as a student. Did this bother you?" "No," Emma said. "I came here to study, not to be liked. I have learned what I need to learn. I have made my observations. I understand how this academy works. I do not need the other students to accept me for that to be true." Director Vasquez leaned forward. "What have you observed?" "That strength without understanding is dangerous," Emma said. "That species with comfortable lives often forget why comfortable living requires protection. That hierarchy based on physical power is unstable because it assumes physical power will never be challenged. That your academy runs on assumptions about which species are strong and which are weak, and that those assumptions are based on nothing but fear of the unknown." The Noctarian did not respond immediately. When he did speak, his voice was different. "You may return to your classes," he said. "Kyle Martinez will be suspended for 1 week. The use of weapons in a non-combat context is against Academy rules. Beyond that, this matter is closed." Emma stood. "Anna," Director Vasquez called as she reached the door. "Do not hide what you are." She turned. "I was not hiding," she said. "They were just not looking." She left his office. By evening, the entire academy knew what had happened. Not just that Emma had defeated Kyle, but how. Students who had been in class talked to students who had not been there. The story spread through the dormitories, the cafeteria, the study halls. A girl from Earth, a Deathworlder, stronger and faster than anyone had realized. The next morning, Emma sat in the cafeteria eating her breakfast alone, just as she always did. But now, students would glance at her before quickly looking away. Now, there was something different in those glances. Respect, maybe fear. Definitely curiosity. A Veltran girl approached her table. "Can I sit here?" The girl asked. Emma gestured to the empty chair. The Veltran introduced herself as Lena. She wanted to know about Earth. She wanted to know what Deathworld training was like. She wanted to know if humans were as strong as the rumors said. By the time Emma finished eating, 3 other students had joined the table. A Keshan boy, another Veltran, a young Noctarian. They all had questions. Emma answered them factually, without exaggeration, without pretense. She explained what gravity did to bone density. She explained how predators had shaped human reflexes. She explained that strength meant different things on different worlds. Professor Harrison watched from across the cafeteria. He saw Emma surrounded by students for the first time. He saw the way she treated them as equals, not as inferiors. He saw the way the students listened to her with genuine interest. The incident in his classroom had changed everything. Later that week, Director Vasquez made an announcement. The Academy would be implementing a new understanding of Deathworld physiology. They would be reviewing their combat training methods. They would be examining their assumptions about species hierarchy. They would be learning that strength could not be measured by a single standard. Kyle Martinez returned after his suspension. He kept his distance from Emma, but he no longer ignored her. He watched her with a mixture of fear and something else. Respect, perhaps, or the beginning of understanding. Emma continued her studies. She continued sitting quietly and observing. But she was no longer invisible. She was the girl from Earth, the Deathworlder, the one who had shown everyone that the soft world they had created was still run by the strength of harder worlds, and she was smiling when she looked out the observation deck at the stars beyond. Station harmony, knowing that her people had finally been truly seen. 2 weeks passed after the incident in Professor Harrison's classroom. Emma's life had changed in ways she had not expected. Being invisible had been difficult. Being visible was worse. Other students approached her constantly. Some wanted to know if humans were as dangerous as the rumors suggested. Some wanted to prove themselves against her. Some wanted to be her friend, as if a single combat demonstration made them companions. Emma found herself exhausted by the constant attention. One morning, a group of Zordian students confronted her in the corridor outside the dormitory. There were 4 of them, all male, all athletic. The leader was named Krant. He was tall and muscled and had the confidence that came from never losing a physical competition. "I want to challenge you," Krant said. "Single combat. Controlled environment. Let the Academy see which species is actually superior." Emma looked at him without expression. "No," she said, and walked past him. Krant grabbed her arm. "Do not ignore me," he said. Emma stopped. She turned to face him. She did not pull away from his grip. "Let go," she said quietly. "Come fight me," Krant said. "Show what you showed Kyle." "I do not want to fight you," Emma said. "I do not want to prove anything to you. I do not care what you believe about my species. Let go of my arm." Krant squeezed harder. Emma felt the pressure, but showed no pain. "If you are truly strong," Krant said, "you will accept my challenge." Emma moved. It was a small movement, controlled and precise. Krant's grip broke. His arm was suddenly behind his back, pinned against his own body. Emma had not struck him. She had simply used his own momentum against him. "You do not understand," Emma said, speaking quietly so only he could hear. "Strength is not about proving things. Strength is about knowing what you are and not needing to prove it to anyone else. You challenge me because you are afraid that maybe I am stronger. Kyle challenged me because he was certain I was weaker. Both of you were wrong. You are strong. I am strong. But I am strong in different ways because my world demanded different things." She released him. "Go," she said. "Find other things to compete about. Fighting me will only teach you that you cannot control your fear. You do not need that lesson." Krant stared at her. Then, slowly, he walked away. His 3 friends followed him. Emma continued to the dining hall. By lunch, the story had spread. Emma had defeated Krant without fighting him. She had shown strength not through combat, but through understanding. The academy began to see her differently. Professor Harrison invited Emma to speak to his combat theory class about Deathworld conditioning. She accepted. She stood in front of 30 students and explained, in simple terms, how humans had adapted to Earth's harsh conditions. She talked about bone density. She talked about oxygen processing. She talked about pain response and fear management. She talked about how survival required both physical capability and mental discipline. The students listened without interrupting. "My world did not make me a warrior," Emma said. "It made me someone who understands that life is difficult, that survival requires preparation, that you must always be aware of threats. This is not arrogance. This is not pride. This is just the result of growing up somewhere that did not give you the luxury of being soft." A Noctarian student raised her hand. "Do you hate us?" The student asked. "For living in comfort? For being soft?" Emma considered the question seriously. "No," she said finally. "I do not hate you. I envy you a little. Your world is safe. My world is beautiful but brutal. I would not wish my childhood on anyone, but I would not trade my experiences for comfort either. Both are valuable. Both are true. The mistake is thinking that one is better than the other." The class ended. Several students thanked her. Several asked questions. One veteran girl named Sarah asked if Emma could help her understand her own body's capabilities better. "I come from a soft world too," Sarah said. "But I am tired of being seen as weak. Can you teach me to understand my own strength?" Emma agreed. She began training with Sarah 3 times a week. Word spread, and other students asked for training. Within a month, Emma was running informal sessions where she taught other students how to use their own bodies more effectively. Not by copying human methods, but by understanding their own physiology. Kyle Martinez attended one of these sessions. Emma was not sure why. He stood at the back and watched. After the session ended, he approached her. "I wanted to apologize," he said. "For what?" Emma asked. "For not seeing you," Kyle said. "For assuming you were weak. For threatening you." "I was wrong." Emma looked at him. He meant what he said. The arrogance was gone, replaced by genuine regret and understanding. "You were operating from fear," Emma said. "You thought that if I was strong, you would be weak. You thought our strengths were in competition. I have realized that most of the conflict here comes from that misunderstanding. Species think strength is a fixed resource. If you gain it, I lose it. But that is not how this works." Kyle nodded. "Will you help me understand?" He asked, not to fight, just to understand. "Yes," Emma said. By the end of the month, the academy was different. Director Vasquez had implemented new curriculum standards. Students from soft worlds were learning to appreciate and develop their own unique capabilities. Students from hard worlds were learning that strength did not mean dominance. The hierarchy was flattening, not disappearing. but becoming more complex and more honest. Emma's status changed again. She was no longer a curiosity. She was not a threat. She was a teacher. She was someone who had seen something important and found a way to share it without arrogance or judgment. One evening, Emma stood alone on the observation deck, looking at the planet below. The sun was setting, painting the sky in colors that did not exist on Earth. It was beautiful in a way that her homeworld could never be. Peaceful, stable, perfect. She thought about why Director Vasquez had told her not to hide what she was. He had understood something that Emma was only now learning. Hiding was not just about avoiding attention. Hiding was about not being fully yourself. And being fully yourself was not a threat. It was a gift. The other students began to arrive on the observation deck as the sun set. First Sarah, then Krant, then others. They stood together, looking at the stars, not speaking, just being present. Emma understood. This was acceptance. Not the kind that came from defeat or victory. Not the kind that came from proof or demonstration. Real acceptance came when people understood that strength and weakness were not opposites. They were just different expressions of what it meant to survive. And Emma Carson, the girl from Earth, had taught them all that a Deathworlder's greatest strength was not physical at all. It was the ability to adapt and to help others understand themselves. 6 months after the incident in Professor Harrison's classroom, the Galactic Institute announced a new initiative. The Deathworld Research and Understanding Program would be established with full Academy support. Its purpose was not to study Deathworlders as curiosities or threats. Its purpose was to understand how harsh environmental pressures created different forms of strength and capability. Emma Carson stood in the presentation hall as Director Vasquez explained this to the assembled students and faculty. She was not proud. She was not seeking attention. She was simply present, as she had always been, observing and understanding. But the other students knew what had happened. They knew that one girl from Earth, through a moment of necessary action and weeks of patient teaching, had changed how the Academy understood itself. The transformation had not come from conquest or dominance. It had come from quiet example and honest explanation. Professor Harrison introduced Emma to speak. She walked to the podium and looked out at the crowd. Hundreds of faces. Hundreds of students from dozens of species. Students who had come to understand that strength was not singular. It came in many forms. It served many purposes. When I first came to this academy, Emma began, I thought you would eventually understand that humans were not as soft as you believed. I thought I would eventually have to prove myself. I was right about that, but I was wrong about how it would happen. She paused, looking at the faces watching her. I thought strength meant winning. I thought proving myself meant fighting better or running faster or lifting more weight. But the strongest thing I have done here is teach people that your fear of being weaker is what makes you weak. Your need to be superior is what makes you inferior. Understanding that difference is what makes you strong. A Veltran student stood up from the audience. Do you forgive Kyle Martinez? The student asked. There is nothing to forgive, Emma said. Kyle was afraid. I taught him the truth. He learned it. He changed. That is not forgiveness. That is just what happens when people see clearly instead of through fear. Another student asked if Emma would stay at the academy to lead the new Deathworld program. Emma shook her head. No, she said. I came here to learn. I have learned. The academy does not need me to lead this program. You have all learned enough to lead it yourselves. You have learned that understanding comes from curiosity, not fear. That strength comes from accepting what you are, not pretending to be something else. That the galaxy is large enough for all types of strength. After the presentation, Students approached Emma continuously. Some wanted to thank her. Some wanted advice. Some just wanted to talk. She was patient with all of them. Late that evening, Emma found Director Vasquez in his office. "I am transferring to the university at Station Echo," Emma said. "I want to study xenobiology. I want to understand how different worlds produce different capabilities. I want to learn more, not teach." Director Vasquez smiled. "I suspected you would leave," he said. "You were never meant to stay in one place. You were meant to carry what you have learned into the broader galaxy. Tell me, do you feel you have accomplished what you came here to do?" "I came to be treated as an equal," Emma said. "Now I am. The Academy has changed. Humans are no longer at the bottom of your hierarchy. We are just different." "That is what I wanted." "No," Director Vasquez said. "You wanted more than that. You wanted the galaxy to understand what Deathworlders are. You have started that process here, but it is only a beginning." Emma did not argue with him because he was correct. 3 days later, Emma boarded a transport ship that would carry her to Station Echo. The other students came to see her off. Sarah brought her a gift, a recording of all the Academy's martial training methods. Kront brought her a list of names, contacts at other academies who wanted to learn about Deathworld physiology. Kyle brought her nothing but his presence, which was enough. "Will you come back?" Sarah asked as Emma prepared to board. "Maybe," Emma said. "If the Academy becomes a place where Deathworlders and Softworld species work together as equals, I will come back. If you remember what you learned, I will come back." She hugged Sarah. She nodded to Kront. She looked at Kyle for a moment, then extended her hand. He took it, and they shook hands like equals, like people who had fought and understood each other through that fight. Emma boarded the transport. As it lifted away from the station, she looked out at the galaxy beyond. Billions of stars. Millions of worlds. Each one with its own pressures and challenges and ways of producing strength. She thought about what Director Vasquez had said. She had only started a process. The galaxy was vast, and most of it still believed that strength came from a single source. Most worlds still looked at Deathworlders with fear or pity. Most species still believed in a hierarchy of worth. But that would change. Not because Emma had fought anyone. Not because she had defeated anyone. It would change because she had shown one clear example of what was possible when someone from a harsh world met someone from a soft world, and both of them were willing to see clearly. The transport jumped to hyperspace, and the stars streaked into lines of light. Emma Carson, the quiet girl from Earth, was finally home in a larger sense. Not home to a place, home to a purpose. She had learned that Deathworlders did not need to conquer. They needed to teach. They needed to show. They needed to be patient enough to let understanding develop. The Academy would continue without her. Professor Harrison would lead the new program. Director Vasquez would ensure that the changes took root. Sarah and the other students would carry forward what they had learned. The hierarchy would never return. At Station Echo, Emma would meet other Deathworlders, other humans and humans from other harsh worlds. Together, they would develop the Deathworld Research and Understanding Program on a larger scale. They would travel to other academies, other stations, and slowly transform how the galaxy viewed strength. Kyle Martinez would eventually become an advocate for Deathworld cooperation. Kront would study comparative physiology under Emma's distant mentorship. Sarah would become the youngest faculty member at the Academy, specializing in human kinetics. But in that moment, as the transport left the station behind, Emma simply sat in the quiet of her cabin and thought about the lesson she had taught and the lesson she had learned. A knife pulled in a classroom, a smile that meant understanding, an opponent who became a student, a world that had changed because one Girl had refused to hide what she was. The universe was vast and full of species and worlds and ways of being strong. But the strongest thing any of them could do was face each other honestly, without fear, and say, I am what I am. You are what you are. Now let us understand what that means. Emma Carson looked out at the stars, and she smiled with satisfaction. The hard lesson had been taught. Now the real work could begin.